Welcome back everyone, Meanpooh here, and today we are looking at the game Assetto Corsa Competizione. It is developed by an Italian game developer which goes by the name Kinos Simulazioni and published by 505 Games. I hope I pronounced that correctly, because it sounds like I just butchered it. But anyway, if you can't tell already, this is a racing game. More specifically, a racing simulator. So there's not going to be any crazy drifting around corners for points, ludicrous jumps, or any of those types of things. From what I have played, this has some die-hard settings and adjustments that can be used. The developers are touting that by using laser scan technology, they have recreated with accuracy every official circuit, and that they have taken care to make sure all curves and details fit their real-life counterparts to grant a gaming experience as faithful to reality as possible. Now, I've never been to any of those places to confirm, but I'm going to take their word for it. This game features a championship, career, special events, and multiplayer modes, but in this video, I'm going to be talking about the solo side of things. So diving into the single player, you have a wealth of gaming modes. Practice lets you try out your car on different tracks. Hot Lap will let you practice for the fastest lap. There's a modified version called Hot Lap Super Pole. Hot Stint lets you practice on being consistent with your lap times. There's a more recognized mode, Quick Race, with a lot of options to choose from. Sprint Race Weekend, Endurance 3, 6, and 24-hour race weekend, and lastly you have Custom Race Weekend. Wow, that is a lot of variations of games to play, and each one will let you modify to how you want to play. This is something you just don't see in a lot of today's games, but then again, this should be expected since this is a simulator. In the track selection, you have around 11 tracks to race on to your heart's content. In the top right, you get a little history of the circuit that you can read up on. There's also some info that tells you the length and how many corners there are, which is very important to me because I hate a lot of corners when I'm in a race. Moving over to teams, you have around 17 cars to choose from at the time of making this video. These are exotic cars and probably at the brand's best. I would say these are the master class of cars. So don't expect any Chevy Cavaliers, Toyota Camrys, or Ford Fusions to race in. Cars range from top brands in the industry. We have Porsche, Lexus, BMW, Bentley, and many others. You can change the team, driver, and entry. When you are racing, you can set the realism in the options menu. You have beginner, rookie, expert, pro, and custom. With each increase, the game will take on a more real-world approach, such as brakes heating up or the damage you receive on your car. Moving over to the weather settings, you can choose between clear, cloudy, light rain, medium rain, heavy rain, and custom. There's a brief explanation about what each one does, but it should be self-explanatory. Feel free to pause the video and look to the right. Just before a race, you can choose a setup for your car. There are a few presets, or you can create your own. Doing this is way over my head, but I'll be happy to show you the screens. This screen lets you set the tire pressure and alignment values. Here you can set up your electronics. This is the fuel and pit stop strategy screen. See what I mean? I know about tire pressures and stuff, but not which to use at any given time. This is truly for the hardcore. This is the mechanical grip setup. Again, I do know a bit about this from playing rally games and such, but this is really a lot to comprehend for the average person. Next up is the dampening screen. I understand what it does, but I have no idea how to get optimal settings. The last screen is the aero screen. I learned a bit about this from Gran Turismo 3, so anyone that has played that game should have some understanding on how to set this up. Taking a spin in the game was a different experience. I have never been in a race to where I had to go for a certain amount of speed until the green flag drops, and on top of that, you have to be in formation. Controlling the car was straightforward like any other game. You have acceleration, brakes, and a button to change gears to reverse. You won't ever need it though, but I was trying to pit and overshot it, and normally the reverse button on an Xbox One controller is the letter B, or the red button. I was frustrated because I was frantically hitting all the buttons and was trying to get back. Luckily, I found it 20 seconds later. Most likely, you will be steering with the control pad, and there is an option to steer with the keyboard and mouse. I played the game using an Xbox One controller, and even though it was playable, something was just missing. In other games, if you have an analog controller and move it a little to the left or right, the car on screen will perform as needed. Not this game. To get the on-screen vehicle to turn like a steering wheel, you have to barely move the controller, and it was very hard, causing me to oversteer at times. I would recommend playing with a steering wheel, as the game is a simulator to begin with, and that would be the only way you will be able to smoothly turn corners and ease in between your opponents. There is car damage in the game, but I didn't notice any while I was playing in my sessions. Some will be visual and some damage will be hidden. You may have hit a wall or ran off the track, and when you get situated, you may notice that your car's engine sounds a bit different. You can then decide if you need to pit in or not. Speaking of sounds, I think this is the best part of the game. There is no music while driving, but what you get is the sound of speed. The engine sounds so freaking good. Have a listen. During your race, you may notice, like in some other games, that the weather may change. That's because there is a dynamic weather system that graphically reproduces weather conditions and visibility. This works really well, as in my sessions I did see standing water on the ground and places that looked like the water was drying up. Sometimes you'll see water flying off your opponent's tires. I set the options to race in a thunderstorm, and when I decided to jump in the cockpit view, I could barely see a thing. I think that was real enough, especially at that high rate of speed, so I was forced to slow down. The AI components that you race against are not perfect. They will pass you if they get a chance and will occasionally wreck. You can force them off the road, but doing so will damage your car, and that's pretty much the wrong way to play. To me, the AI is very aggressive, and you can change that in the options. Moving on to performance, I set the resolution on the Acer Nitro 5 to 1920 by 1080. Using the Epic preset, the 1050 Ti had an average temp of 79.5. CPU was hitting around 83.5, and the FPS was averaging 26. High preset resulted in the GPU and CPU dropping half a degree and the FPS increasing 4 FPS. The medium preset saw the GPU drop down to 75 and the CPU dropping 1.5 degrees. Average FPS increased by 5. Lastly, we have the low preset. GPU dropped 4.5 degrees and the CPU followed suit, dropping 3.5. The average FPS ended with an average of 48.5. This is truly not impressive for FPS, although for temps, it's pretty good. Decreasing the amount of cars in a race should result in an increase of FPS, but I didn't test that as I want all cars on screen or at least in the race. To get the most out of this game, I would suggest you playing with a GTX 1070. The 1050 does work, but you really need a little bit more horsepower. Over on Metacritic, it's doing pretty good with the critic score being 77 and the user score sitting at 6.8. Over on Steam, out of almost 5,000 reviews, it's sitting at a mostly positive rating. Looking at the game for what it is, it's quite decent, and it's best played using a steering wheel. Using a control pad is very possible, just don't expect super smooth steering. I don't know what it is, but while using the wheel, the computer kept spinning me out and I had to restart the race quite a few times. This brings me back to the comment I made earlier when I said that the AI is very aggressive, so take note of that going forward. If you happen to finish a race and you want to save the moment, you can save the replay and watch it whenever you want. There are quite a few camera angles you can access, some common to other games and some not, with my favorite being the cockpit view of your driver. It looks very realistic. Well, I think I've talked enough about the game. I could go on and talk about the rain and how it rolls off the windows of your vehicle, or that this game supports VR and you have got to play it to experience it. No video can show you or make you feel what it's like to be in VR while you're playing. It's just something you just have to experience. Or Assetto Corsa Competizione is the new official video game of the Bestbuy GT series, but I won't. In closing, if the video helped you, feel free to like and subscribe. If you would like to know the hardware I am using, I have them listed in the description box below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Meanpooh, out.
Excellent job there. P2, well managed. Bring it back home safely.